My name is Sharon Jinkerson-Brass, and my traditional name is Wapsi Pineshi Ikwe. It means White Thunderbird Woman. And I am Anishinaabe Kwe from Key First Nations in Saskatchewan, Treaty 4. And I am the great-great-granddaughter of She Who Speaks. And in my Anishinaabe culture, my mentor teacher was my grandmother, Kuku Rebecca, but we always just called her Granny. And I think I've lived life. I'm a 60s scooper, and my mother in my adoptive family was an artist. So I was raised around the arts my whole life. And I never really saw myself at all as an artist, but what unfolded from my healing journey was a very creative process. And out of the process of becoming White Thunderbird Woman, I began to create. And I guess basically storytell at first, figuring myself out, and then using writing, poetry, prose, fabric art, filmmaking, all of these adventures to better express and communicate. And basically what drives me is the love, the unconditional love that I received from my grandmother. When I first met her, she said, "Come here, I want to love you up." And that meant she was going to witness you. And witnessing is a process of praising you so that your spirit dances inside. And she would acknowledge not the things you had, not what you earned, not how you looked, not what you'd accomplished, but your essence. And the first time I met my grandmother, she said, "You're so smart." And she said, you're wise. But she said, "You're kind." And she said, "You're gentle." And she said, "You're so powerful, my granddaughter, but you're gentle." And so I met my grandmother when I was 27 years old, and that began an apprenticeship with her. And she was a midwife and a traditional medicine woman. So I think of myself not so much as an artist, but trying to communicate that love as best I can. Oh my goodness, I raised my family on the Gulf Islands, so I'm a mother and a grandmother. And I was visiting Galiano Island, and because my partner, who's in the spirit world, is a storyteller, he was a big inspiration for me too, and a mask carver. And I encountered Diane. We ended up going for a walk and talking about the ancestors. And what occurred to me in that conversation was I'm so curious. And how Diane had described her awakenings as she taught students in theater and recognized that they were healing, very deep healing, and something else was happening. And I know that that's true because many Indigenous people, our issues are our identity, which has been, there's so much conflict and negativity around our image because it's been tainted so much by the filters they've been put through with colonization. And what I saw Diane was creating a space that you could enter into your cosmic dreams and your imagination and imagery and play with the intuitions and instincts that I think we all have on our human journey, but they're not realized, they're random, they don't go anywhere. And frequently in the colonial world, we're taught to dismiss it or diminish it, or to think we're just making it up, or even to just make fun of it. And that's all in the colonial construct to make us be compliant, and we're conditioned to certain roles and conditioned to think negatively about dreaming and spiritual awakenings, and completely embracing that and honoring it and giving it place. And I immediately recognized when Diane described her work that, oh, there's a place for me there, because I, through ceremony, create these spaces as well. And what I saw with Diane's work was a way to create vocabulary with symbols and image and movement and dance, and a way to create community, village. The village aspect really appealed to me as well, because I really think to decolonize in the world, we're on a mission of connecting, because when we're just awakening within ourselves, or if we're meditating, we need the group meditation. We need the group village to speak together, to lift our voices and our hearts in prayer and song, and to discover that unconditional love. Because in my own research, love is the ultimate power. It's what we get from our grandmothers. In this world, it's all about productivity. It's about accomplishment. It's about being right. And in unconditional love, it's acceptance. It's embracing. It's awakening our wisdom on the inside, and coming from a place of patience and kindness, a place of generosity and sweetness. And I feel like our vocabulary has been so diminished with colonization that we need a opportunity to play with it, a safe space to play with it. So Diane, with her nurturing spirit, and I notice the way she approaches the artists and approaches the team supporting the artists, and it's with dignity and respect and kindness and patience. And those are all unconditional love medicines, and we need more of that, so that we have a child's heart throughout our lives. And when you read firsthand accounts of contact with my nation, they described how elders played like children and laughed, and the colonizer thought there was something wrong with that they had to intervene and create more, I guess, more fear and rigidity and separation. And so I come from generations of separation. My grandparents and my mother went to residential school. My father's side of the family was an immigrant. There was separation there too for survival. And so I think we're all living in survival mode instead of our real selves. And what might that bring into the world? What can we create? Mm-hmm. So one of the ways that we teach medicine in my culture is to experience things. So my grandmother had a way of like setting the table, but she didn't tell me how to eat the food, how to approach it, so it's medicines is, in the colonial world, is an intellectual process. And we have some of that too, like our medicine wheel has the 4 sacred directions, and each direction has a sacred teaching and a set of values, and it's all there in the medicine wheel where the sun rises and the sun sets. It's just a metaphor for the natural world that we live in. And so the idea is that you get some of the teachings, but then you go out into the world to awaken things on the inside. And so my grandmother, when she was first teaching me, and I just was thinking, just give me the answers. Tell me how to do it right, and let me go out into the forest and have kind of a perfect, ideal encounter with nature. She wouldn't do that. And I used to try to trick her by asking a whole series of questions, and she would just sort of like be neutral. And eventually I'd realize I'm not getting anywhere. So then I would listen to myself and say, what should you bring, Wapsi Panishi Ikwe? And I'd go into my room and things would start to speak to me versus being instructed. You take A, B, C, and D. I had to go in and go, oh, I'll take this. Oh, and maybe I should bring those feathers, and I'll get some tobacco. And I would start gathering from just what felt right. And then going out into nature, I noticed that my grandmother would always notice how the birds sounded. Oh, they're angry today, or oh, they've got new little ones. Listen to their joy. And so then I would go out and I'd think, okay, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing, but maybe I'll listen to nature. And sure enough, I'd hear the water rushing, and I think, where does the water want me to be? And listening to the birds and just being connected and being instinctual. So I guess that is kind of decolonizing the way that I was learning and being. And in my work with Diane, one of the things that came to me is the importance of dreams and dreaming. And the ancestor that I researched, I realized that she was Nez Perce. I have quite a few different indigenous bloodlines. And the grandmother that I researched was Nez Perce. And she came north with Chief Joseph's people during the tumultuous time in the late 19th century. And she was one of 40 Nez Perce people that made it across the Canadian border to Sitting Bull's camp. And that's where my great-great-grandparents met. And she, as I researched in my work with Diane, I found out she was a dreamer. And my people always said, you have her eyes. You have her eyes. And I can't pronounce in Cree the way her name, she somehow got a Cree name, and maybe when they married, they gave her a new name. And it means she who writes. And I realized, oh, I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. And as I looked into her culture, I realized that she was a dreamer. Well, that started me on a whole other exploration of myself, because at a young age, I had really vibrant what I describe as three-dimensional dreaming. But when it's just you, you think everybody's like that. You think they have, and maybe everybody does have it, but what's come alive in me from my work with Diane, and my most powerful medicine is respecting those dreams. And over the years, I've realized how one dream from when I was as early as I can remember has led me all the way to the work with the Arrivals Project. And what happened was pivotal because of the encouragement and further nurturance with Diane and exploring the images and the space and time of that great-great-grandmother. I realized I don't physically have her eyes, because I've seen Nez Perce people and I'm aware that they have hazel eyes, so I always just assumed, oh, I have hazel eyes like her. But I realized I see like her. And that was a major awakening. So when I work with people, that's the medicine I'm trying to help them to discover, not what I think, but who they are. And creating ceremony like my grandmother to create like a veritable smorgasbord of different kinds of love and beautiful emotions, all in the area of being kind to yourself, not listening to the trickster voices, but understanding we have all magical abilities and traits as humans. Our instincts are right. We can walk into a room and feel the vibrations. And today science is catching up with that, because they know they're able to capture vibrations from the human heart 12 feet away. So I think that's the most powerful medicine, is helping people to really land in themselves and to trust not just the seen world that we're in, the physical world, but the unseen world. Yeah, and that's where Diane has, I think, it wasn't her intention, but she realizes the power in what she's creating with people. Yeah, it's really amazing. I think that's probably it in a nutshell.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Am I making sense?
Yes, a lot of sense. Thank you.